2025 was a great year for games, but not necessarily a great year for gaming. So now that it is over, it's time to look at 2026 and see what it holds for players. I will be going over my hopes, worries, and expectations for companies and games that are releasing in 2026, or at least are expected to be released in 2026. So let's get on with it. Let's start with Ubisoft. Ubisoft had a rough year. On the gaming side, it saw Assassin's Creed Shadows underperform, and even smaller releases like Anno got caught in drama. Coupled with all the emergency meetings and potential buyout news, the corporate side made 2025 a year that Ubisoft wants to forget. Ubisoft currently has 10 projects in development, like New Far Cry and Ghost Recon, but how many will release in 2026 remains to be seen. I feel Ubisoft is the company that needs to change the most. You could be excused for not remembering what Square Enix did this year, and that's because they mostly rely on ports, remakes, and remasters. But it is worrisome that 2026 looks mostly the same as 2025, the only noteworthy release listed being The Adventures of Elliot. Square Enix even had some drama on the corporate side at the end of the year with the CEO being called out due to poor sales and performance. So while not as bad as Ubisoft, Square Enix is a company that I hope starts to shake things up internally. Next is Xbox. The next 3 biggest games in Xbox lineup are Clockwork Revolution, Forza Horizon 6, and Fable. I hope these 3 end up great. For Fable, it would mean a return to form. For Forza, it would be a continuation. For Clockwork, it would be a breakout. Of these 3, Clockwork Revolution is the one I'm most interested in. Time warping mechanics are tricky to implement, but when well done, they elevate the game they are in. 2025 was a rough year for Xbox, with bad news coming from every direction, and the fear of them simply dropping out of the console market has never been higher. So I hope Xbox can get some major wins in 2026. Capcom's primed to have a great year. RE9 comes out in February and will probably be a hit. Pragmata will be out in April and is probably the dicier game for Capcom this year, but all the previews for it have been positive. It currently has a demo available, but I haven't gotten around to play it yet. I don't expect this game to turn into a franchise for Capcom since it has one-off vibes, but I could be wrong. And Onimusha doesn't have a date, but from the previews it is a solid sequel that doesn't change Onimusha into a Souls-like game. Nintendo is another company I expect will have a good year. Switch 2 has been a success, and most Nintendo first-party have been well received. The only exception was Metroid Prime 4. My only wonder is what they will release this year to keep the Switch 2 sales strong. It feels like we're due for the next Mario game, whether 2D or 3D. Sony also had a great 2025, but in 2026 we will probably start to hear more about the PS6. But this worries me. The rumors have been pointing out to an expensive console, and if Xbox gets out of the console market, Sony will have free rein to raise prices as they wish. And I don't think Valve will change anything in that regard, since they already made it clear that Steambox will have a premium price. Now let's talk about games. Highguard is a hero shooter that releases in January. The game was announced at TGA, but didn't have a great reception, and it didn't help that one of the devs was lashing out on social media. I expect this game to get some players since it is free to play, but how many will stick around after the first month remains to be seen. Another FPS that is in similar dicey situation is Marathon. After the poor reception of the beta, Bungie went back to the drawing board and has been working on it. Some of the reports recently have talked about the game's improvement, but still isn't enough to dispel the poor initial impression. Another game that went back to the drawing board was Mina the Hollower. I played the demo, and while I enjoyed it, it had one big flaw: combat. The enemies had some weird hitboxes and were very tanky, which made the combat as long. And it was made worse by the fact that combat was the biggest factor in the game, or at least in the demo. So I hope Yacht Club Games fix the combat before the launch. One last game that also had issues after a beta was Marvel Tokon. though I think it was more of a problem of Tokon getting revealed and have a beta too early. A 4v4 fighting game with only 6 playable characters was bound to have issues about matches feeling the same. The good thing about this is that the ArcSys can rework the game. I won't be surprised if it gets delayed to 2027. Let's keep going with the games I think are the open questions. Beast of Reincarnation is a rare attempt by Game Freak to break out from relying on Pokemon. The game is slated for 2026, but so little of it has been shown that I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being delayed. So if you just get more information about it, I will be happy. Blood of the Dawnwalker was a game that got a lot of interest. Bandai Namco saw the success of the Witcher franchise and decided they wanted a slice of that, with the major gameplay difference being that Dawnwalker has way more verticality than The Witcher had. So far, what they have shown has been good, and I am interested in it. Considering Bandai Namco is the publisher, I wonder if they envision a franchise out of this, or if they see it as a one-off partnership with Rebel Wolves, the studio developing it. Tomb Raider had 2 games announced in the last TGA, but the one I'm interested in is Legacy of Atlantis, a remake/soft reboot of the franchise. I hope Crystal Dynamics took a very long look at the original game to figure it out what made it good. Another game that was revealed at the TGA was Bradley the Badger. I got interested in the game since it gave a little bit of Conquer vibes, and the mechanics it showed seemed interesting. It's one that I'll keep a watch for in 2026. Igarashi has been quietly establishing Bloodstain as a small but successful franchise in gaming, and in 2026 it will release the 4th installment, The Scarlet Engagement. I played Curse of the Moon and Ritual of the Night and enjoyed both, so I am hyped for it. Another game I am hopeful about is Order of the Sinking Star. I talked briefly about it in my video about the reviews in TGA, so just click above to see what I thought of it. Silksong was one of my favorite games of the year, even though I think it had a few flaws, particularly with the overuse of gauntlets, but I am ready for the Sea of Sorrow expansion. I will even make a prediction. The new area or areas will be on the eastern side of the map. That's where most of the water is in the base game. We are getting 2 new Star Wars games in 2026, Galactic Racer and Zero Company, but there are 2 other unannounced Star Wars games on the horizon. The 3rd Jedi game from Respawn and the Amy Hennig game with Skydance, which has been in development since 2022. Both games will probably get revealed this year, but I think both will be slated for 2027. I am looking forward to both. One last game I hope to hear more about is Haunted Chocolatier. I play Stardew Valley a lot, but as a Star Wars fan, I get concerned when a creator keeps returning to a previous work to add things. The game has increased in size, and it keeps being a great game, but it has hit diminishing returns a long time ago. Concerned Ape really needs to move on from it. These were my hopes and expectations in gaming for 2026. If you want to add something you think is important, leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you around.